What is up, League? This is the podcast. We got your co-managers. You know us. Introductions really aren't necessary, but for those that don't know, I'm in the Boston area. Tyler, actually in Oregon right now. So
Yep, currently in
that's
Oregon.
kind of
Going to
cool.
be heading back to the East Coast, New York, in a couple days. So we'll be back in the same time zone shortly. But it's great to be here on our unnamed podcast.
We'll name it soon, probably. The name of the league came up purely from me Googling league names like 3 hours before the draft, I think. So we'll
Nice.
try to do something better for the podcast, but
Yeah, give us some
this is what
feedback.
we,
Let us know.
yeah. And in the meantime, we're planning on doing this podcast every week. We want to have guest stars from the league managers coming on, joining us. We're recording on the league Discord, so please come join the Discord. We have the recording booth channel, and maybe we'll even just say if you want to watch it live, you can.
Yes, we look forward to having you all on. Please join the Discord. I personally would really like to start using Discord more, so help me have a reason to do so. Let's get some competitive trash talk going.
Yeah, if you don't like chatting in Sleeper, this can work. But without further ado, the podcast, the unnamed
Unnamed
podcast.
podcast brought to you by
Yeah.
G Fuel.
In
All right,
medieval
Josh.
times.
Josh, what are we starting off with today?
All right. Well, first, obviously, unfortunately, we had some people that couldn't join us for our first larger, more planned out in-person draft. We were missing out on Matt, Tyler, and Victor. Matt
I have
managed to
an
join us on Discord.
I have an excuse. The other two have no excuse.
Well, I believe Victor may have been on a military base, and
Okay, well, I
Matt,
lied.
Matt worked late and still joined on Discord. So there was some effort put in.
All right, I'll give credit where credit's due.
Yeah. But for those that didn't get to join, just going over some of the events of the draft. It was a good time, hosted at Nine Signet in Boston, and we managed to have our draft up on a big screen TV, had just Simmons, but the Discord in the corner, had some brews. It was a lovely time. And of course, the peak of it was Gabe's punishment dance, which I must say he did smash. Truly nailed it.
I haven't seen it yet, but I do know what song he performed. He ran it by me beforehand, so I look forward to when I get the chance to finally see that video.
He and Yeah, we got to make sure we are making that public soon. Get it on YouTube or something because he definitely set a bar to make this league something real, and I appreciate him so much for that.
Absolutely. Shout
The
out to Gabe.
other the other fun thing was, aside from going through this draft, was the moment in this draft that Tyler decided to jump in. Now,
Yeah.
over the course of this draft, Tyler was auto drafting.
Yeah, a little bit of
You know,
context on that, by the way. I have never auto drafted in my life until this year, and I auto drafted all four of my leagues this year because just being on the West Coast and working, I had just zero ability, and I knew that I wasn't gonna be like, hey guys, can we draft at like 2 in the morning at your time? So I accepted the risks that came along with this. And yeah, so that day I was at work. All of my bosses were there, so I was really trying to not be on my phone. But I knew the draft was happening, and I eventually did slide in to try to make some last second picks in the later rounds.
and you chose one beautiful, beautiful pick because you jumped in right at the moment that Andrew and Steve were agreeing on a trade. This trade, you can saw it went through later with a different player on the Sleeper app, but essentially trading Bryce Young for Ezekiel Elliott along with uh, a pick each. And originally that was going to be for Devin Singletary.
Yeah, so basically what happened there is I got on. I was liking how my draft was going. I thought everything was looking really good. I definitely needed a running back though. And at that time, I saw Devin Singletary as being kind of the highest floor running back available. Nothing crazy, just a very, very safe pick to have on your running back core. And so that was kind of what led me to being like, oh, obvious pick right here. Let me throw that in the queue. I threw that in the queue. I don't even know if I made that pick myself or not, but yeah, it was really fun to learn about the chaos that I had later caused.
Yeah, I believe that you were online when the pick was made, at least, because we, all watching the draft intently, just see that little green dot appear showing that T Main is in the draft. And audibly, Andrew actually said, "Oh fuck. Wait, he might fuck this up." Like like
No
he saw
kidding.
it coming before it happened. And wouldn't you know, you took Devin Singletary, who was not the next up by ADP.
Do you remember who would have been the next pick by ADP?
Oh, you know what? I think it's actually incredibly possible to check because, uh, oh no, it's not actually super possible to check. It probably would have been Zeke. So I guess he just ended up with, no, I don't think it would have been a running back. Yeah, I don't know who would have been next up.
I don't know. If there's one thing I learned about auto draft this year, is that they really just pick the best player they think is available. Two of my teams that got drafted on ESPN's auto draft had my two starting running backs and then zero running backs on my bench. How? How does that happen? How is that not part of the auto
I,
draft feature where it's like, let's give them a nice balanced amount of players? I had four quarterbacks and two running backs. What is that?
you got to get value. It's all where the chase the value.
Apparently.
But
But
yeah, yeah, bold maneuvers by the auto drafter. But
yeah.
that was a great moment, and Andrew graciously stayed with it to get Zeke, which, in my opinion, far worse of a,
Yeah, not
trade
nearly
in
as
that
good of a
case.
pick. Not nearly as good of a pick as Devin
Um,
Singletary.
yes, and along with that, Steve gets Bryce Young in the last round, hoping for a good keeper in future years.
Yeah,
And
Bryce Young could turn it around. You really never know, you know?
I'm not personally, I do not have much faith in him, but we'll get into that
Yeah,
later on.
yeah.
Yeah. So on to some other things that happened. We went over new rules for the league. Now, Tyler, you weren't here to vote on these rules, but we went forward with simple majority, and I think there was one rule that came close. But aside from that, there was a pretty much nearly unanimous on all of these rules, and we're just going to go over them quick so that people that forgot, people that weren't there can hear them a little more clearly. First one being that previously, third place got nothing. That's, they tried for the championship. They didn't make it. They didn't get anything. And the person that got the most money and the most points in the regular season got their money back. Now that has changed.
Swapped around.
Now, yes. However, the fun thing is that now whoever gets the most points in the regular season gets to choose the song that the loser will dance to and perform to. Uh, I don't know about you. That makes me so much more terrified of losing.
I agree. I'm already terrified of losing anyway, just for my own pride. But yeah, now that I know that somebody else controls the song, I'm gonna get to pick. Oof, that's not good. Because I for sure knew that if I was gonna lose, I already had a couple songs in my head that were like, all right, these are like my go-to karaoke songs. These are good on the roster, but it's anyone. It's anyone's choice now, I guess. Really.
It really is. Like the original punishment is you can walk in, you can choose your style of song, and you can own it. Yeah, people might laugh, but overall it'll be like, okay, cool. Like that is what Gabe did. Now, Now just don't lose
Yeah, for sure.
because yeah,
For sure.
but
And the loser is not lowest in the standings. It is whoever falls to the bottom of the toilet bowl in the end. So, whole season counts. Every game matters.
it all matters. Uh,
As far
and
as
that's also the
as far as third place going to get their money back, I feel pretty neutral on that. Honestly, I used to be a big fan of like everybody splitting up the money. More recently though, I'm more of like a winner takes all kind of guy, but it doesn't the rule change doesn't bother me. The winner's keeping the same amount of money, I suppose.
yeah, the overarching theme of these rules tended to be people want more to play for. They want their it to keep mattering. So you're gonna go in the regular season, you're playing for picking the song. You're playing for another rule that kind of isn't like a super important rule, but more for fun, is the drafting of the divisions. So the divisions
Yeah.
are set up so that the top two from each division go to the playoffs. The bottom two from each division, they're going to go to the toilet bowl or have a chance of going to the toilet bowl.
Hmm.
Those middle guys, they're just safe. They just get to hang out. And that was me and you last year. Me and you,
Yeah,
fifth and sixth place.
just on the cusp of missing those playoffs, but I'm coming back with a vengeance this year, best believe.
Oh, yeah. So now the winners of each division, the people who got the most points, are going to get to draft their divisions.
I love that.
So
I love that because it also just throws shade at whoever gets picked first. We're basically being like, yeah, we think you are just objectively the worst manager and are most likely to have a failing team.
it really is a beautiful thing where you just get to pick the people you're like, I could destroy you the most, which also
Definitely.
kind of hurts. I was a first pick in my division.
That's shocking. I mean, I do feel like there's
Yeah.
also an aspect of maybe wanting somebody in your division for the rivalry aspect. Who picked you? Was it Jordan?
It was Sam.
It was okay. That also makes sense. I feel like
Yeah.
Sam didn't pick you because he thinks you're weak. He picked you because of the. I feel like there's a little rivalry, the roommate rivalry
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I discussed it with him. He doesn't he's gonna regret it either way because obviously I'm taking the division, but it stings a little to be that first pick, which, just drives home the point that it's a good rule.
I agree. I think I do really like that rule. Like you said, it's just fun, and I like adding any aspect of fun or you know whatever you want to call it. I don't want to say competitive edge because that really it kind of I mean it kind of makes sense. If you get to draft your division, you
Yeah.
could argue there is a competitive edge in picking the managers that you want to go against.
Yeah,
If somebody's finishing the bottom three teams 3 years in a row, I probably want them in my division.
exactly. And, all in good fun mostly, but there's definitely it starts that little bit of strategy early.
A little
Uh,
bit of strategy, a little bit of rivalry
yeah,
too.
a little bit of rivalry. It's a fun little thing. You get to still kind of root for your division when you're out of it. You're like, hey,
Hmm.
that guy, well, he thought I was shit, but
I mean, I feel like that would
maybe
be
he'll
more like
take
who I'm going to root against in my division, but
might be.
might be. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we'll
It's
see how that all
interesting.
plays out.
I don't know if Madden has this feature, but NBA 2K has this feature where if you create a new team, as you go through seasons, you have like a rivalry meter with every team, and it will slowly increase based on certain things. Playoff wins and losses, regular season, if players switch from your team to theirs, and over time you like develop who your rivals are. And I feel like this is where our league is going is over time we're going to know who is like your like biggest hated team in the league. We're all going to start developing rivalries. Who knows?
It's just gonna be like, man, I am picked by Sam every fucking year.
The league is
He
so
keeps
young. The
winning.
league is so young. There's so much that's going to happen
Oh,
in the coming years.
so much room for hatred. It's a
I love
beautiful
it.
thing. Uh, so another rule that came in that is probably the largest one,
Yeah, this is
like
for
not
sure.
aside from prize wise, is that you can now keep waiver ads. Now, I know you would have been a big fan of this rule last year.
I would have loved this rule last year. I would have Sam Laporta on my team right now. Though I guess
Yeah.
I would have only have been getting him with the ADP add-on instead of the, having him like way at the back of the draft as if I had drafted him in the last round. I like this rule change. I think one thing that, and I don't know if this just isn't written in here, but one thing I would have argued for at the the rule discussion is I would have said that you could only keep players that were added before the trade deadline. I feel like there needs to be a cutoff at some point of when you can keep those free agent ads because like if you had a guy in like the second to last week of the year just because you think he might be good next year or you might want him as a keeper. I don't know. I would have personally argued for like a cutoff point, probably the same week, like I said, of the trade deadline.
That does make sense. I do think that if someone is it's probably a rare case that someone after the trade deadline is going to pop off enough to like you didn't want them on your team before, but you're adding them for next year, especially with the other rule that was added, which is you can't keep a player that you added or drafted if they were already out for the season when you drafted or added them. This is the JJ McCarthy rule.
The JJ McCarthy rule. Yeah, this rule, we discussed this one a little bit previously. I personally was not a fan of this rule. Feel like everybody has the same opportunity to draft someone like JJ McCarthy purely to stash him as a keeper. Everybody has that opportunity, so I don't see why we shouldn't allow that if that's how you want to move strategically. And also, you're taking on a pretty massive risk. I mean, I like JJ McCarthy as a prospect. There's a chance that Sam Darnold blows the Vikings out of the water and JJ McCarthy is just the next Trey Lance.
Hey, I believe in Sam Darnold, sort of. I bet $5 that he would take over the job from Brock Purdy last year. I lost $5, but
Yeah, how about that Brock Purdy guy? Mr. Irrelevant. And is he like a borderline
if
top 10 quarterback? I mean, he's got to be top 15, right?
top, I don't know, his stats are insane. The touchdowns alone are going crazy.
I know.
I would say, I don't know, this year, I have to see it this year. Right now, it's still like I'm in disbelief of the guy. He has all the weapons around him. He has Ayuk back,
Yeah, I mean
massive.
that is obviously a big part of his success has been the weapons that he's had around him. But even that said, there is a talent in just being able to play into a system. And I I compare, and this is a wild comparison. I compare Brock Purdy to LeBron James. LeBron James is known for being able to bring the best out of his teammates, and he elevates everybody else when he's on the court. And I feel like that's kind of what Brock Purdy is doing with the 49ers. He's helping them get the best out of the weapons that they do have.
See, that's wild because my comparison, I always think of Alex Smith, and
Yeah, I mean,
two
I
very
see.
separated players.
Yeah, I mean,
Two-
you could also even say Brock Purdy is a 10th, but a similar build of Tom Brady in a way, where they have a very strong pocket presence. They read the field very well. They have good accuracy, good arm, not crazy strong. Kind of just like standard
Yeah.
quarterback. When you know how you play Madden and they give all the quarterbacks like pocket passer, mobile, standard. That is Brock Purdy.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, he ticks all the boxes that you need from a quarterback. I'm very interested in seeing how much it's going to cost to keep him on the team. Like how much, like
I
if
think
he'll be
he's gonna
paid.
stay. I don't think
Like,
there's another team in the league that would pay him that much. I would be pretty surprised if he doesn't end up eventually re-signing with the 49ers. But
yeah,
you never know, it can
I
happen, obviously.
yeah, I would be shocked, but they're definitely scraping by. Like they're getting the Ayuk deal done, getting the Trent Williams deal done. It's going
Yeah,
to be a probably decently tough buy. but they don't want to end up like the Cowboys. Got to lose Dak Prescott if they don't get a deal done with him.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Anyway, we went over our waiver ad rule. There is that addition to the waiver rule that has been brought up for discussion recently. By the time this comes out, I'll have made my decision on this. And this is on adding a player that was previously drafted and then dropped. Just to give my current standing on it, I think I'm leaning towards you get that player at as if they were a waiver ad. But if you're the
Yeah.
person that drafted the player, I think you treat it like the draft. This is just to keep people from, Andrew mentioned, drafting Cooper Kupp, dropping Cooper Kupp, spending everything to get Cooper Kupp back. Now, again, it's an edge case where everyone else in the league has to not be paying attention or not have as much fab as you or et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think we want that edge case to happen. So best to just do that.
Yeah, it's definitely a really interesting dynamic. I definitely agree, like you said, if you pick up a player that was drafted by somebody else, you get them at their ADP plus two. If you draft somebody and drop them and then re-add them, which I mean very well could happen, you know, especially with like guys we're picking in the later rounds. Maybe you draft someone early season, they're not doing good, you drop them, they end up picking it up, you get them back. I feel like there could be a caveat to the rule in which it's like either whether we want to say the better or the worst of both of the options. I feel like that might be the way to go about it instead of necessarily saying it's definitively one or the other.
That's interesting. So let's see, running through that, let's give our Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, Cooper Cup's the this is the Cooper Cup rule. We got the JJ McCarthy rule. This is the Cooper Cup rule.
This is Cooper Kupp.
So last year Cooper Cup
Uh,
was what? Probably like a second, third round pick.
yep.
There was a little concern with injuries. We'll say second for the sake of argument. So this year you would have been able to keep him in the first round basically.
You would keep him in the first round if you drafted him. Or if you were to pick him up off waivers, he would be going in the eighth round, which Cooper Kupp is going way too late, by the way.
I completely agree.
That's
Cooper Cup, yeah, Cooper Cup is absolutely going way too late. But
absolutely wild there.
but yeah, I don't know. I feel like it should just honestly be probably the worst case scenario for the team would be probably what I would lean towards
Keep the lower of either.
because it's like all right, you drafted them and you gave them up. Why should you get the privilege of benefiting from the fact that you didn't basically believe in your player and got rid of them and then re-added them back to your roster? I would say it's like you drafted them, you have the ability to keep them. Once you drop them, last year, once you had dropped them, would you have been able to re-add them and keep them?
You draft. Are you saying if you drafted them in a previous season?
So, all right, let's go back to last year because last year you couldn't
Okay.
keep free agents or
Yep.
waiver ads. If last year I drafted a player, dropped them, and then re added them, would I have been allowed to keep them for this year?
Last year you dropped them and then re-added them. Yes, I suppose so.
Well, then I feel like based on that, you should be able to keep them at the original drafted value if that's what the rule was last year.
That rule was also a little bit in muddy water last year, but also right now we would have that stay as the rule. You draft if you add someone that was drafted or add someone that you drafted and then dropped, you keep them as if you drafted them. But if anyone else adds them, they they keep them as a waiver ad. So you can still benefit by picking your own guy up. You're just not going to get above what they.
I see.
You're just not going to improve on your draft.
I see. All right. I mean, so still, I'm personally still leaning towards, like I said, basically going with the worst of the two situation.
As a like a blanket for everyone, everyone gets whatever's worse.
No, as a if you draft, drop, and re-add a player. If you add a
Okay.
player that was drafted by somebody else, I think it's automatically ADP plus two. And I think once a player gets dropped to free agency, they are now counted as a free agent ad wherever they go, regardless if it's to a different team or back to the team that originally drafted them. I think it should be ADP plus two.
Even for the person that drafted them.
Yeah. I'm now just kind of assuming that that would almost always be the worst case scenario.
Unless you drop Cooper Cup and
Well,
grab him
yeah.
back.
Yeah, and I do still see like the argument of like, oh, you could try to like finesse the system that way, but
You're
I
gonna
don't
do a
know.
little finesse.
I'm going back to my opinion on the JJ McCarthy rule, which is everybody has the same opportunities to exploit the rule, so it is
And
balanced
that's
in a
fair.
way.
It is.
Just
It
like the
is.
real NFL, there's some shady business going on.
It is, and that's fair. Uh, let's see. I'll have to actually. What is the current poll? The current role poll is treat them as a waiver pickup.
All right, so that's
I
basically
think
that
I'll be
agrees.
leaning that.
Yeah.
So the agreement seems to be heading that way. So I think I am going to go with that and give a soft rule of, hey, don't do that. Like, don't drop a guy just to add them again. And if you do, I'm going to add him and you're going to get screwed over. So, huh? But, but yeah.
Oh, look at
Now,
that. I didn't know Discord did
wow.
that.
I
What
didn't
happens if I
know
do two
either.
thumbs up?
Wait, that's just
Nice.
by,
No, I think that's an. I actually lied. I think that's an Apple thing. Gabe showed me this
oh,
before. I just forgot about it. So
that's such a bummer.
I get cool effects. I forget if I do double
Oh, I
thumbs
get
down, it's
nothing.
a rainstorm or something. Yeah,
That, that's annoying. I don't
get
want
an
that.
Apple.
All right.
Anyway,
Well, that covers, I think, all of our new rules, our divisions,
yep,
our new prizes,
yep.
our new keepers. We're becoming a league. And with that, I do super quick discussing these divisions. I just want to hear your opinions on your division, and this will lead us into our power rankings as well. Do you think that Twee or High Life is the stronger division?
Allow me to pull these divisions up right in front of me. All right, so looking at Tui and High Life, obviously I am in the High Life division. I'm going to argue that I think that my division is slightly more difficult based on my power rankings. Yeah,
See,
looking real quick. I mean, yeah, actually looking at my power rankings, I definitely think that my division is slightly more difficult. What about you? What are you looking at for
I
Twee versus High Life?
well, Twee versus High Life, I might tend to, well, I do think they ended up surprisingly even. I'm trying to remember what I say surprisingly even because I was drafted first and think I
Did you
shouldn't have been
did you guys pick the divisions before or after the players were drafted?
after the draft.
Oh, all right. I really like that.
Yeah. You have a full like, hey, your draft sucked. Get over here, bud.
Get in my
But
division.
I'm gonna say I might even agree. I might be happy I'm not in the highlights.
I think you should be happy you're not in the High Life division. Without spoiling too much, I'm going to tell you that a lot of the teams in my top 5 are in the High Life division.
Interesting. Yeah,
But with that said, you want to get into these power rankings?
you know what? I think perfect time for that.
All
So,
right.
first of all, kick us off. Who's your number one?
Oh, I think we should go backwards. Let's go 10 to 1. I think we got to go 10-0.
You know what? Fair, fair.
All
And
right.
to those watching, to those listening, we'll learn more after the first week. Not a ton of prep time went into this, but I hate to tell you that this is 100% correct.
These are the
So,
definitive power rankings. Could not be
yeah,
wrong about
you,
this.
you should probably feel bad, and that's it.
All
All right.
right.
Who's your
So coming in at number 10, I'm sorry to say it. Don't take offense to it. But coming in at number 10, we got Team Matty Sims.
Matty Sims?
Yes. And my quick rundown for that is Patrick Mahomes, very good. I do think he's going to have a slightly down year in terms of fantasy. I don't think he has a very strong running back core. I do know he has Nick Chubb on the IR, but Chubb, injury prone. It's tough to come back sometimes from those. We're going to see how he performs. I don't love Rashad White as one of his running backs. I don't see a lot of high ceiling with a lot of his players like Jerry Jeudy, Dalton Schultz. I mean, he has David Njoku as one of his flexes right now, which is crazy. And his number
Yeah.
two QBs are Caleb Williams. I don't know. We'll see how Caleb does. I think
Now,
there's a lot of question marks around his team.
I tend to agree here, except for on one thing, which is that I think Patrick Mahomes is actually going to have a much better season than last year and probably the year before. Not much better than the
In
year
terms
before.
of fantasy,
And in terms of fantasy, because his team got better. Like he
I mean,
actually has weapons that he didn't have in the past. He has Xavier Worthy to stretch the field. Rushy Rice now actually knows the system. You know,
Rashi
we had
Rice
he has
is a player I'm very interested in this season. I'm excited to see if he can really take
yeah.
like that big jump.
I'm a big fan of Rushy Rice. He has he has Pacheco. Know you love Pacheco. And he even has Samaje Perine now to check down in the back, similar to Jerick McKinnon. And of course, Kelsey is still there. Overall, I actually think Patrick Mahomes is set up very well, which sucks because the fact that the Chiefs just won a Super Bowl and then got better is not
Yeah,
awesome.
I don't think anybody's happy about that except for Taylor Swift.
No, maybe Jason Kelsey, and I support Jason Kelsey at least.
All right, so Josh, who did you have in your number 10 spot?
So in my number 10 spot, let's see. So I actually have uh one Mr. Steve Wood. Now,
Yep.
I I'm a big believer in Jalen Hurts this year. I have money on him for MVP. I think that Kellen Moore is coming in here. I think the passing game is going to be awesome. I think Jalen Hurts is a great guy to have. I also think Trevor Lawrence is going to be much better this year. I think he'll make a bounce back. I don't think that Marvin Harrison going ninth is. I feel like that's like as good as he can do. I think a similar thing is happening with Drake London, and after that he has Jordan Addison. I just don't love his wide receiver core.
No.
His running back core is kind of in a similar state for me, where Josh Jacobs is going to actually has gotten a lot better for me recently because everyone else on that team is injured.
Mm.
Like every other running back, he is the guy.
He is
David,
definitively the number one.
yeah, and David Montgomery will have his moments. I'm not a huge fan of Cole Kmet at tight end. TJ Hawkinson will make a decent keeper.
Yeah, Komet's all right.
Yeah. And so overall, I just think I don't think he's got that like that shining piece.
No, he doesn't.
But
To put it plainly, his bench is garbage. The players on his bench are actual doo doo butter. And I'll just skip ahead and say right now, Steve was ninth for me.
yeah, I did have Maddie Sims at ninth, so we can just
Honestly, looking at these teams again, I think that we can collectively agree. I'm putting Steve in the last place, and we'll put Matty Sims at our 9.
All right. All right, we'll go with that. Uh, but yeah, so moving on into our 7th,
No, 8.
8. I can count,
Numbers.
allegedly.
All right,
Numbers, they
so
exist.
in the 8th spot, and I'll say right now that I already think there's a huge jump from these bottom 2 teams into this next team. Um, this next team's still not great, but I think they're definitely way better. And for me, that's going to be Team Notorious Scoundrels.
I'm
I
with you
think
on that one.
Notorious Scoundrels has a really solid starting lineup. Jameer Gibbs, Devontae Adams, Laporta, T. Higgins. It's the bench that raises some concerns with me. I do really like Zach Moss coming off the bench, but besides that, the depth is just not there. Calvin Ridley is a very low ceiling player this year, so for me, that's really what's
Ooh,
putting Notorious Scoundrels in that spot.
okay. I'll be honest. I'm looking back at Notorious Scoundrels and I might move them up because, first of all, I love Lamar Jackson. I have to disagree on his bench for running backs. I think that Zach Moss and Chase Brown, at least together, I think that you're going to be able to find a good backup. Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley. I'm a believer in the Titans as to do better than their ADP this year, especially Calvin Ridley, just because, I mean, especially you have DeAndre Hopkins injured. He can bounce back a little bit. I do have some issue with no really big name at wide receiver. Chris Olave, I gotta say, I do not want Derek Carr throwing to my guy. It
No.
is not the look right now.
I
But
used to be such a
having,
Derek Carr fan, but he's really fallen off.
yeah, yeah. But having Jameer Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Lamar Jackson, I do think there's some good names to pull him up. Baker Mayfield as a second quarterback and having no other quarterback is a scary thing.
Hey, as long as Lamar does
So
not get injured, he's good.
yeah, exactly. But I'm going to have to agree with you on scoundrels dropping down there.
Got it. All right. So
Uh,
for now, and this could change as we continue to discuss, but we got Notorious Scoundrels in our 8th spot.
yes.
All right. Josh, who do you have in your 7th spot? We've been very similar so far.
We've been very similar so far. Now on my 7th spot, I think I'll say there's a bit of a jump for me here too. I think I'm going to have to go with the Charmin Ultra Softies.
All right. Care to explain?
It's, I think this is a team made to not look that great because he went with the names that everyone knows and that isn't super, you're not super excited about. You have your Debo who's getting a little age. You have Zay Flowers who had a good rookie campaign but didn't quite pop. You have Christian Kirk who's been, Mr. Consistent but has Brian Thomas coming in to kind of combat. And you have Jackson Smith and Jigba who might be fucking phenomenal this year, but who knows?
Big might
As
on
well as
there.
Joshua Palmer. Brees
Mm,
Hall, love Brees Hall, obviously a stud. Josh Allen, stud. Anthony Richardson could be a stud, could be not a stud. Like, we just don't know with Anthony Richardson. And that's my big scare here. As far as running backs go, Kyron Williams, I've been a little bit put off on the like is how much is Blake Corum gonna get into that backfield.
yeah, dude. Look at the Rams'
So
backfield for the last like 4 years. No running back has really dominated that backfield from like completely. I mean, Kyron Williams doing it last year is the closest we've seen. They've gone through so many running backs in the last few years. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to trust any Rams running
kind of
back.
keep going. Yeah. Gus Edwards, I do like. Tajay Spears, it's him and Pollard. I honestly think that Pollard's a little better. So, Tajay isn't super high up for me. Uh, and then there's, Jake Ferguson, Taysom Hill. I love Taysom Hill. Fucking love Taysom Hill. But I don't know. It's another one of those like not enough things that are popping to make me like, oh, yeah, he's got it.
Yeah, so I know we're talking about number 7 right now. I had Charmin at number 6. And you are kind of talking me down and putting them at 7, but let me tell you who I originally had at my 7, and that is Team Too Much Water.
Too much water, aka
My
the Aaron Rodgers hate club.
Yes. So the logic here is this starting lineup is awesome. Brock Purdy. Running backs, not super strong. I like Joe Mixon more than people are giving him credit for. I think he's going to get a lot of goal line touches this year. Obviously, the receiver core goes crazy with Amon Ra and Nakua. Kyle Pitts, very high ceiling this year in terms of what he could do. The fall off after that is what worries me. He does have Jared Goff, which I like, but I'm not sure how much Eckler is going to be doing with Washington, especially because I don't think touchdowns are going to be that plentiful for the Commanders this year. And then that bench is just, oof. There's not a lot to be excited about there.
Well, you haven't put as much effort into the talking as I did on the last one, but you might be talking me down actually. I might have my Sam swapped because, yeah, we got a lot of tight ends on this team. And I feel like you could. I like Ingram and I like Pitts this year too, but I don't see Goddard doing too much.
No. For me right now,
And
what's really putting Charmin still over Too Much Water is that Too Much Water has an awesome starting lineup, but one big injury to this team could ruin everything. And I feel like Charmin has a couple of guys on that bench who could pop off and be those like league winner type guys who got super late and end up being one of your most important players. So that for me is what's going to give Charmin the edge over Too Much Water.
I think I'm going to agree with you. I think I'm going to swap mine there because if
All
I'm
right.
being, I like Travis Etienne, and but Deontay Johnson as a wide R3 is a rough one.
Yeah.
Again, not a huge fan of Mr. Bryce Young.
No,
Not sure
not
he's
at
going to
all.
make it in this NFL,
Not at
but
all.
we'll see. And not sure if you scroll down a little bit, he's got Xavier Legette too.
Oh, I see that.
Also, having the lovely Bryce Young passing. I do love the Amon-Ra Jared Goff stack. I think is going to go crazy.
Yeah, like I
Bonkers.
said, the starting lineup here, there's no doubt about the strength in that. But like I said, it's a very fragile lineup, in my opinion. There's not as much depth as I would like to see. And some of the guys who I feel like he's relying on, like Austin Eckler, like Deontay Johnson, are just going to underperform.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there.
All right.
I think
So
you
to
can beat me.
So to briefly recap our bottom 5, I find it incredible that we never had any team more than one slot away from where the other person did, but currently our collective power rankings have Big Baller Boys in 10th place. We got Matty Sims in ninth, Notorious Scoundrels in 8th, Too Much Water in 7th, and the Charmin Softies in 6th. Josh, would you like to kick off our top 5?
Kicking off our top five. Now, going into our top five, I think I'm gonna have to give this one. Now I'm between two teams here, so I'm interested to see if one of these two is gonna be yours as well. But I think I'm gonna go with the SCLSU Mud Dogs. Now,
All
my
right.
thinking here, pretty straightforward. They Their big pick is Justin Jefferson and Bijan Robinson early.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do love Bijan Robinson. I am worried for Justin Jefferson. I know I said I believe in Sam Darnold. Maybe not enough
Not
to
that
take
much.
care of Justin Jefferson. Uh, I also think that Trey McBride might be going a little high for the fact that he now has Marvin Harrison Jr. coming in. I think that Michael Wilson on that team is going to be taking more targets. I just think I think he's going to be a great tight end, but I think he might have been going a little high. Similar with Michael Pittman, who I believe I don't quite trust Anthony Richardson to handle his workload, to give him what he needs to succeed. Now, with his running backs, I do really like his running backs. You know, James Conner, Najee Harris, Javonte
Yeah.
Williams, Jerome Ford. I like all of those guys. James Conner, there's a decent chance he doesn't make it through the season. Najee Harris is splitting time with Jalen Warren. Jerome Ford is kind of a question mark. We don't know when Chubb is coming back. And then my real issue is with the quarterbacks. Uh, I like them both, but they're definitely weak. They're potentially actually, they're not the weakest in the league, but I'd say they're the second weakest in the league, in my opinion.
All
And
right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely am a little
Mhm.
higher on the Mud Dogs than you are, for a couple of reasons. One, I think they have a really solid core, like you said, with Bijan, Connor, Justin Jefferson. I'm pretty big on Trey McBride. I agree with you that I'm not huge on Michael Pittman, but what I really like about this team is a lot of those players, especially off the bench, are very high floor players, meaning that this team's not going to be scrambling for guys who can put up double digits when, we have bye weeks or injuries. Like, I think it's like almost a perfect example. Cortland Sutton and Terry McLaurin are like your definition of low ceiling, high floor players. And I feel like when you stack your team with guys who have high floors, you're kind of ensuring a certain level of success. And I do, I'm not sure how competitive the Mud Dogs are going to be really going for that championship, but if they can get a couple of guys to pop off, Trey McBride mainly being one of them, Jaden Daniels being the other one. So
Yep.
Keon Coleman too on the bench. Bill's wide receiver room's really up for grabs right now.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I just, when you have all those high floor players, I think that, fifth is where you're going to find yourself. You're playing to win. You got to go big,
Yeah.
which would bring me to my fourth, which I have to double check quick, but yes, I would say my fourth, unless you want to go to your fifth
No,
first, and
I'm
then
curious to
making
hear
your
who
fourth.
your fourth is. Because I think your
My
fourth is either going to be my fourth or my fifth.
Yeah, so my fourth is Granny's Gold Galleon.
All right.
Now,
So I like that.
when I
I
say you're
like that.
playing to win, look at these goddamn wide receivers. You have Garrett Wilson, Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, Xavier Worthy, Christian Watson. These are all the like, hey, we're booming or busting. They're either gonna work out or they're not.
Hmm.
But I think enough of them are gonna work out that he'll have a pretty strong receiver room. Similarly, you have Christian McCaffrey, you have James Cook, Derrick Henry. All three of those guys really can like carry a team. Jalen Wright, there's a world where even he's getting putting up a lot of points. This is the weakest quarterback room. Tua and Aaron Rodgers could toss this season, and when your backup is Michael Penix, like you're,
Yo, yeah. Can we talk about that? Where the heck? How did Michael Penix get on anybody's roster?
hey, he can be kept. That's
I
it.
suppose.
But
So
man, not having an actual backup is rough.
so I had Grannies at my five spot, and I like Grannies for me. The reason they're in my five is because they could be the number one team in this league by a landslide, or they could find themselves in last place again. And it's like you said, they just have so many players who have, I mean, incredible ceilings. I'm personally not huge on Malik Neighbors or Garrett Wilson, but I'm not going to deny the upside that they have to them. Um, yeah, this for me, this is the definition of a boomer bust team right here, and that for me is what put them in number five.
Yeah, makes sense. but I want to believe in the boom.
Yeah, we got a team that's BBB and we got a team that's GGG in this league.
Nice. And we got
All
a
right.
team that's PB. So who's your four?
So my four is She Loves My McConkey.
I
But
see.
I've already been reviewing this team and thinking that they might honestly slide up a spot for me because, spoiler alert, I have the Mud Dogs at number three. Um, but you've definitely talked me down a little bit on the Mud Dogs. You bring up some great points about as much as I do like players who have those high floors, having too many of them is going to limit your team's success. And just looking back at this McConkey team, I mean, they also have some players, Blake Corm and obviously McConkey, who could do really, really well this year. I think people are underappreciating Jacoby Myers as well, especially with the question marks around Devontae Adams' health right now. And then this starting lineup is just incredible. We already talked about how much we like Cup compared to where he's being drafted. Burrow's going to bounce back. Kenneth Walker, I'm really big on. So, yeah, no, this is a really strong roster.
Yeah, and you said this is currently at your four.
They are currently my four, yes.
They're currently at your four. So
I'm
I
already going to tell
also
you right now that they're probably going to slide up to my three and that the Mud Dogs are going to go down to four.
I will say I currently actually have She Love My McConkey at my two. So we can piece together. I'll jump to
Well,
my third, I suppose.
you got to give me some talk on that.
For my talk on that. So this is a very good quarterback room, and I'm a big fan of the wide receiver room.
Yeah.
And I think those two things are just incredibly important in this league. You have your extra flexes, there's PPR in there. It's 6 point quarterback, touchdown passing. Like these things really come into play. So, especially these not as mobile quarterbacks can still be very good. I think Cooper Cup could just be better than Puka Nakua this year, and people just
Oh,
have
absolutely.
ignored that fact. And so I think Cooper Cup was a massive steal. I also think DK Metcalf can really pop off this year with a new coach in the Seahawks, using him differently. Keenan Allen is going to be a bit of a question mark. Lad McConkey, a little bit of a question mark, but both could be really good this year. Travis Kelsey, I mean, he's Travis Kelsey. There's not much more that has to be said about that.
Yeah.
When it comes to the running backs, Kenneth Walker, similar to DK Metcalf, coaching staff loves him. He might do great. He probably will do great. Is he going to get to that like upper echelon? I don't know. But behind him, you have Alvin Kamara, who, I mean, if there's one person Derek Carr can throw to, it's the guy 5 feet away. So
You're not
they're
wrong
half
about
point
that.
PPR, baby. Like that's all you need to do. Since that DeAndre Swift will be there for Caleb Williams. Zeke technically has a starting role. Blake Corum, I really think he will eat into Kyron Williams a bit.
Yeah.
Overall, it's just a solid team. And it has something that I am going to point out about my top three teams. Every one of the top three teams has a kept quarterback from last year, which I
Mm.
think, and it just goes to show like that's a massive thing to be able to get like that late, a quarterback late and still be confident in your
Yeah, I
quarterback
mean
room.
it's just like the NFL. I mean, the quarterback is one of the key positions of fantasy football, especially in a super flex league like ours. So, yeah, it wouldn't be shocking that if you get a really good pick at quarterback the year previous, you're just set up for success, not just for the next year, but for the 3 years you can keep them.
Yeah. And with
Yeah, I
that, we
mean,
have two more teams to talk about.
yeah, you for sure talked me into having McConkey in my top three, and honestly, maybe even to my number two. But I think the top three teams, which I kind of knew we were going to have this. Actually, I thought we were going to have the same top two. I guess we don't, but they're very close. These three top teams are all competing for league championships. These are our three big contenders, in my opinion.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think you and Andrew are the reason that I am happy that I am not in high life. So
Yeah.
that's, a win for me.
Yeah, I mean, looking at my like division, besides having Steve, who I think is objectively the worst team in the league, the other four teams in this division are in the top five.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, I think early I know we were kind of talking like, oh, Twee or High Life. Now talking about it, I'm like, obviously High Life, in my opinion, is the way more competitive division here.
I tend to agree now. Looking at it, I started this conversation looking at like, Twee's probably the competitive one. I'm happy to be a Twee. Uh, so
Well, I
would
mean,
you
there's
like to
two.
give some
I
thoughts
was
on
gonna say
your
there's
team?
yeah, there's two teams that we haven't discussed here, and obviously it's our two teams. Are we a little bit biased? Sure, probably. But that said, I don't think that anybody in this league would doubt that. Even if they don't think that we're the best, I don't think anyone would doubt that our two teams are absolutely top five and that we are probably competing for the championship this year. So, yeah, we can start off by discussing my team, which I'm assuming is your number three.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, the big highlight of my team, as we just said, being able to keep CJ Stroud, and overall, I think just my keepers from last year are what really, really fueled this team for success. CJ Stroud, Pacheco, and George Pickens. George Pickens is going to be a very hit or miss keeper. I'm happy to keep him where I got him, but whether he's a big factor or not, to be determined. But yeah, no, I mean, I think I just have a really, really strong wide receiver core. I think that my bench, especially, might be one of the deepest benches in the league. Curtis Samuel, very high ceiling. Love my backup running backs in White and Singletary. Gardner Minshew is the one pick that I'm like, probably could have done something better, but for now he's staying on the roster. So
Yeah, that Gardner Minshew pick, it was a question mark. It's there, and
yeah,
that's just how it is. I, you know, I do think the auto draft did some great things for you down the line. I'm not a huge Zamir White guy, so that was kind of a ding for me. And oh no, I love my Browns. I love them to death. For some reason, Amari Cooper always gives me I get worried.
I don't love Amari Cooper. I mean, I'm happy that Amari Cooper is my wide R5. If he was above that, I'd be a little bit more worried. But I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
I'm not big on Amari Cooper, but you can't tell me that's not a good wide R5 on your team.
Yeah, no, no, you're right. You're right. It's just, when I'm looking at the you versus She Loved McConkey, I just have to, I'm doing my comparisons. I think I'd rather like Amari Cooper maybe was drafted before Keenan Allen. I might prefer Keenan Allen.
If
I
you
don't
had to,
know about that.
if you had to summarize in like one sentence what puts McConkey above my team, what would it be?
Hmm. Summarize one sentence.
Yeah, or like just like briefly like
Yeah,
sum up like
yeah,
what
yeah.
is it
Yeah.
that
My brief summary is I I think that he has more value in his picks. I think he has more people that I think are going to get better this season
Hmm.
versus your team, which I think is a very good team, but I'm not sure there's as much room to grow as She Loved My McConkey. Like I said, I'm a you gotta aim for the upside guy,
Yeah.
and I like the upside on She Loved My McConkey. I think Cooper Cup's going too low. I think DK Metcalf's going too low. You have CeeDee Lamb and AJ Brown, and they're just Dudley. But I don't know that
Yeah.
I'd say they're going too low.
No, this is fair. This is fair. Honestly, the more we talk about McConkey, you honestly talked McConkey to me above my own team and above yourself. So now in my head, I'm now thinking that McConkey is the best team in this league.
Damn.
You've
Well,
so originally my number one and two were me number one, you number two. I'm now sliding McConkey up to one, and I'm bumping myself down to two, and I'm putting you at three. And I'm gonna guess that you are your own number one.
I am my own number one, of course.
You have a very
Um,
good team, but I'm gonna need you to defend that.
Listen, I'll be honest. There are picks I made that I don't agree with. I had to draft on my phone, which wasn't great. I didn't have any of my rankings with me, so it was a very gut draft.
Mm.
Just my laptop wouldn't turn on, so it was unfortunate. I'm happy with my gut. Now, my first thing that I honestly wasn't a fan of purely because of the stack, I wish I took CD. I wish I had CD and Dak.
Yeah, I think
I
CD
think,
is gonna be the wide R one this year. He's especially now that he got paid. He's just so
yeah,
definitively in control of that entire offense.
yeah. I like they're ranked pretty much. They're ranked right next to each other for me, either way. But I mostly for the fun. Just I like a good stack. Now with the rest of my team, I mean it's pretty simple. I am a big fan of Jonathan Taylor. I think Anthony Richardson's not going to be a negative for him. I think it's actually going to open it up for him a little bit more. And if Jonathan Taylor is having trouble passing, he's probably going to be throwing to the running back if he needs to be throwing. Now, the big question mark happens for me with Devon Achan, who is the exact you are playing to win pick because I probably, if I was smart, I would take like Derrick Henry. Good, reliable, gonna do great. But if Devon Achan hits, in my eyes, I'm just set because he was breaking fantasy before he went down last year. Now, Mark Andrews, again, just a going in the fifth round, going far later than I think he deserves because he could be the tight end two. He could be the tight end one in a world. My
What world is Mark Andrews going to be the tight end one above Travis Kelsey and Sam Laporta? What world?
he's the number one option on his offense, just like the rest of them. Like they have the same role. His issue is that he has been off the field more often than not.
This is
He
true.
he absolutely can outscore because both of them also have more options on their offenses than the Ravens do. Like he has a larger percentage of that offense. Whether it's an offense that
I mean,
will be passing enough for that to matter, that's the question. But love me some Mark Andrews. If he does go down, I grabbed Isaiah Likely just in case. Now, my
I
wide
did see
receivers,
that.
I love my wide receivers. I had the keeper at Brandon Ayuk. I don't even know that he would be. He's probably ending up as my wide R4 in reality because I think Nico Collins and Devontae Smith are both going to be very good this season. Rushy Rice has a chance to be top 20 receiver. I think it's a lot more of what I'm saying like upside. These guys are poised to get better. And if not all of them get better, that's fine. But if enough of them get better, I'm looking at a superstar team. If Jonathan Brooks comes in, if Trey Benson comes in, historically, at least there have been at least two rookie running backs every year that are top 20 running backs. I don't know that this is the year that
Yeah, this could certainly be the
that
year
I
that breaks that.
this could be the year that breaks, and I kind of expect it to be, but surely at least one of them is going to be. And I expect it to be
Perhaps.
Jonathan Brooks with the Canales offense and making use of a pass catching running back. But again, if I'm being honest, it really all lies in Achane,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. So I do really like your team. I think that your team is going to score if you were to take. I forget what the stat is, but you know how there's the stat of like your maximum points you could score every week.
Yeah,
I think
max
that
points for.
I think your max points for is probably easily going to be number one in the league. I think the problem you are going to run into is starting the right guys every week. For example, Nico Collins on an offense with Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. Nico Collins is going to have plenty of weeks where he drops 20 points. There are also going to be some weeks where it's Stephon Diggs who gets most of the targets, and it's not Nico Collins, Tank Dell who makes the big play. Those are going to be the weeks Nico Collins suffers. I think it's kind of the same thing for Rashee Rice. I think Rice is going to have some really big weeks. I think he's going to have some down weeks. Same thing with Achane and Mostert. I have no idea how that dynamic's going to play out this year, but if there's one thing that I'm pretty sure of, it's that while the Dolphins offense is still going to be obviously top 5 probably this year, I don't know if they're going to be able to replicate the success and just the sheer amount of points that they scored as a team last year. That would be an incredible feat for them to do that a second year in a row. And then you do have a couple of guys who I'm personally not huge on. Mark Andrews, I think that's going to be a run heavy offense. I think a lot of those passes that were previously going to Andrews in short down situations are going to be going to Justice Hill. They do have Zay Flowers as well. Don't get me wrong, Andrews almost still guaranteed a top 5 tight end. I just don't know if he's top 3 anymore. And then Kyler Murray, you know that I'm like a huge Kyler Murray hater. I just have no faith in the guy, to be honest with you. I don't even have a reason to back that up other than he rubs me the wrong way and just coming off of injury and all this. I don't know. I feel like his best years are already behind him in all honesty, but you still obviously have a really good team overall. I think Brandon Ayuk being on your bench right now is insane. It just shows that you have really good wide receivers. Uh, your backup running backs are what scares me, though. Trey Benson, if that injury doesn't happen, he's useless. Romeo Dobbs could be a huge hit. He could also be absolutely nothing. Brian Robinson is probably not going to do very well because I think a lot of those goal line opportunities are going to be going to Austin Eckler. So for me, I got you at number 3 right now. I've moved myself down to number 2, and I got McConkey at number 1 now.
Brian Robinson, I kept that guy at potentially below his ADP. Like, he was not. I kept him in the 12th round, and he might have been going in the 13th or going in the 11th. No, going in the 13th. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, I just love that guy. Purely because he just got shot in the leg.
He
and
has
he's
a
just
great
now
story. He's got a
came
great
back and
story.
tears it up. And now we have Ricky Pearsall, who got fucking shot in the chest, and the coach says he's going to play this year.
Insanity. First of
What
all,
the
what
fuck
is
are
up
these
with
guys?
NFL? Yeah, what's up with NFL players getting shot? Y'all need to calm down.
Oh no, man. Apparently someone was trying to oh, steal his Rolex or something. I forget. But
That's wild.
yeah, I don't know. Wild stuff. But yeah, I guess that wraps up our power rankings. We'll have more of an idea after our first week.
Hold up. So we need to lock in our definitive top 3. Can we agree that
Okay.
collectively we put McConkey at number 1? Because if he's both of our number 2s,
Yep, deal. If we can put McConkey at 1, me at 2, you at 3.
sure. I'll go with it. I'll go with it just because I do think you have a few very high ceiling players.
I
Um,
think that I think that my position on this list will be decided very highly after week 1. I think watching the first week of games is going to be a big oh, I could drop.
a big thing with week 1 is, you never want to judge everything off of week 1, but the big thing you just see week 1 is usage. What's the snap percentage my guys are getting? How many targets are my receivers getting? Just how many touches are my running backs getting? Basically, just getting an idea of everyone's involvement and workload, even if they don't necessarily have the biggest impact week 1. That's the biggest thing you're looking
Yeah,
for.
exactly. But
All
Aside
right.
from, so we have She Love My McConkey.
We
We
got
have Basement Gremlins.
Basement
We got
Gremlins.
we got the Drunken Dragons.
Yep.
In 4,
I
we
think
had Granny's Gold
collectively,
Galleon.
yep, we got Grannies in fourth. We got the Mud Dogs coming in at 5. After that, we got the Charmin Softies in 6. We got Too Much Water in 7. Notorious Scoundrels in 8th. Matty Sims in 9th. And then bringing up the rear, we got the Bodacious Ballers, or whatever his team is called.
The Bodacious Boston Ballers.
The
Bringing up the rear. But hey, if Marvin
Bodation
Harrison
Boston.
Jr. goes crazy, who knows?
He needs more than that. Marvin Harrison could be the number 1 wide R this year on that team. Will still need a miracle to get out of the bottom 5, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. He'll get there. Man, he has 1, 2. Yeah, just 4 quarterbacks. Yeah, he's got a little bit of doing to do. But yeah, I think that wraps up our first show.
Indeed, it does.
Obviously, in the future, looking to have guests.
Hmm.
Also, in the future, it'll be shorter shows. We'll be able to just kind of
Yeah, the
snap
power
along
the
a
power
bit. Because,
rankings this week are what are going to make this week so much longer. I think really
yeah,
diving into everybody's rosters. Future weeks, I think, will certainly be quicker episodes, but this was a lot to discuss in week 1. So
yes, power ranking, discussing the benches of other teams is probably not going to happen again until
not as
someone
fre-
gets injured.
not as frequently
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, but yeah,
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in and listening to this first ever unnamed podcast.
yeah. Let us know in that sleeper chat or on this Discord what we should name it,
Yes.
because
Also, let us know if you want to be a guest on the podcast. It's not really an option. We're going to force all of you to be on here at some point. So volunteer if you want to get it out of the way.
yeah, I'm thinking next week we might stay with just us, just to
Hone in the
hone in the
podcast.
show.
Yeah, figure some stuff
Yeah,
out.
figure some stuff out. But as soon as we can, start getting y'all on here because you got to defend yourselves. Maybe we'll get Steve on here first.
Oh, I would love that.
But all right. And with that,
All right.
I guess see you next week. Set
We're
your
signing
lineups.
off. We'll work on an outro.